tables bending, broken rule. Hound dog howling, bullfrog croaking. Everything is broken.
Hello and welcome to part 2 of the interview with Kristen Zurek. My name is Dan Cuneo, your host on DadsDivorce. Today we're going to continue our discussion with Kristin Zurek, our attorney from Cordell Cordell, dealing with vocational experts. A lot of people who write in and go online, a concern is, well, considering what the economy is, how will a vocational expert help me?
A vocational expert is going to help you because your money only goes so far. Everybody, pay raises aren't what they used to be. Some people are taking furloughs. Some people are taking pay cuts just to keep their jobs. In this economy, you got to push her back out of the nest. You got to push her back to work, and this is the strategy, and this is the best way to do it.
Now, once we have our expert on board, can the client have communications with this expert, or is it just communication between vocational expert and the attorney?
Oh, no, I like to keep my clients 100% involved. I'll have my client go talk to the vocational expert himself to give him or her as much information as they can about the soon-to-be ex-spouse to help fully utilize them and their services and to get me the best report possible.
In your experience, are courts receptive to vocational experts?
Absolutely. A court's going to listen to a vocational expert because they're the only people that really understand the economy as well as anybody else can. I mean, I could look at the paper and say, oh, here's an ad for a receptionist mom can easily be able to do, but I'm a lawyer. I don't know if she's capable of doing that, but someone who can look and see what her past work history is and someone who can look and see what she's done and what her capabilities and her job skills are, suddenly that person carries a lot more weight.
Once we are in front of the judge, is it your experience that you have the vocational expert come with you to court, or do you stipulate to a report? How does that process work once the vocational expert has interviewed the spouse?
Well, to be quite honest with you, Dan, it all depends on what your opposing counsel is willing to do. If you have somebody who's fighting you tooth and nail, then you're probably going to have to bring them to court. But if they're going to say, you know what, we recognize she used to work, she has a good degree, there's no reason why she can't be working, I'm willing to stipulate to this value as her income, then you've gotten a lot farther, and you don't need to bring your expert to court, and you've gotten what you wanted. You put her at a dollar figure.
Right. Since you're able to get a vocational expert on board, that doesn't preclude mom or husband, depending upon what the situation is, from getting their own expert too.
You're 100% right.
And so they can go out and get a counter vocational expert that would either interview that spouse, or they could come back and say that you're unemployed or underemployed.
Right.
So if you're underemployed, then you're still going to be at risk to subjecting yourself to what the other spouse went through.
You're right.
So what happens once you have two vocational experts on board, one representing each spouse?
If you have the dueling expert issue, which is what Dean's talking about, option number one is they both come into court, they both tell their side of the story, and the judge will either adopt one wholly or adopt the other wholly. Or typically my experience is when you have dueling experts, sometimes judges are just willing to split the difference just to sort of be fair, rightly or wrongly. I mean, when I have experts come in on appraisals on houses, my appraisal for a house might be $350, mom's appraisal might be $300. 9 times out of 10, the judge might put it at $325.
Sure.
So you do need to be aware of that you do have yourself open to a vocational examination as well if you're underemployed. But those are very rare situations. I'll tell you, in my experience, I can count on one hand the number of cases I've had where there's been dueling experts where my client, I'm saying she's not working enough, and the other side saying, well, he's not working enough.
Am I on the hook 100% for those fees for that expert if the court adopts what my expert is saying?
It all depends, to be honest with you, Dan. The expert fees are usually tossed in with attorney's fees and court costs in the calculation of how the court is going to divide those up. So I can't give you a definitive answer as to, oh, she'll pay for 100% of those costs. It's been my experience when you're dealing with those issues, the court will take all those costs together and determine who's paying what.
Right.
So you might have to pay for it up front. There's a chance you might get some of it back on the back end, but it all depends on the judge and how they usually handle those fees.
Now, another issue is going to be that people are thinking is, I have this expert that I paid money for. He interviews my spouse and comes back with a lower range that I think that she's capable of making. am I stuck with that number?
No, you're absolutely positively not. Okay, if your expert comes back with this number before you turn it over to the other side, you can say, well, explain to me how you got to this number. I need to let the other side know. So am I saying you can tell your expert to jack it up $20,000? No, I'm not. But what I'm telling you is if your expert comes up with a valuation that you don't necessarily understand or agree with, you need to sit down and talk to him or her about that before you disclose the report to the other side.
What if the report comes back and I still disagree with it, but we haven't interviewed mom yet? This is just based upon tax information and the documents that you identified earlier that I diligently gave ahead of time to the vocational expert. Can we get another one?
You can try to have your expert supplement it if mom's at that time willing to subject to an interview, or you take the deposition and ask additional questions that might change your expert's valuation.
Now, we talked earlier based upon timing. It's more beneficial if you get the vocational expert on board as soon as possible, meaning once you know that there's going to be a claim or an allegation made for maintenance or alimony. And if we have someone on board, but we just don't have the time for whatever reason to get mom or dad in right away, you can use that vocational expert as an additional tool to help you out in deposing the other party too.
You are 100% right. If I'm going that route, I'll have my vocational expert give me a list of questions to ask the opposing party, so that way if she's not going to cooperate and be a party to an interview with the voc expert, at least I have the answers to the questions that he wants to know.
Now, a lot of people tuning in and clicking onto the website, listening to this podcast, may already be in the middle of their litigation, and they're thinking, I don't know what to do. My attorney hasn't even told me about a vocational expert, and we're set for trial shortly. What would your advice be to that particular person who doesn't have a vocational expert involved, but whose case, based upon what we've talked about today, would necessitate getting one involved?
I would tell you really need to sit down and talk to your attorney. This is something that you need to consider. When you're going in litigation, the goal, at least I tell my clients, is to maximize the amount of custody time I can get you and minimize your financial hit. That's what I say all the time. And that should be your goal. And if you're in divorce litigation, you want to make sure you can get your kids as much as you can and, pay what your kids need, but not anymore. And so if it's going to help you out, you need to sit down and talk to your attorney about whether or not this might help your case in any way, because, again, the investment might very well be worth it.
Sure. Now, is there ever a time where it's just too late to have a vocational expert on board?
Yeah, if you have trial in 2 weeks, you're probably too late. But, it's all about strategy and it's all about communication. Right. And if you have a good enough relationship with your attorney, you should be able to sit down and ask these questions of him or her and get answers about the best way to move forward to maximize your results within the court system.
Well, I want to thank Kristen for spending part of her day with us. She, again, as I mentioned, she's an attorney with Cordell Cordell. And you can listen to the entire interview of Part 2, dealing with vocational experts, on DadsDivorce.com and click on the podcast. Otherwise, this interview will be cut short, but you can still listen to it on Dad's Divorce. Also, you can go on DadsDivorce.com and click on the Ask a Lawyer, which you can submit questions, and we'll try to address those in any upcoming and future episodes. Again, my name is Dan Cuneo, your host, and look forward to you tuning in to another episode.
Broken pipe, broken tools. People bending, broken